For 4 nights, a grieving mother in the hills of West Virginia said her dead daughter came to visit her. Not in a dream, she insisted. In the cold of the room, standing at the foot of the bed, the young woman told her how she had died and who had killed her. When the law finally listened, they raised the body back out of the frozen ground, and what they found in a schoolhouse that winter of 1897 matched the dead woman's account exactly. Tonight, we open another page of the Black Salt Ledger. This is the story of the Greenbrier ghost, and the only murder trial in American history said to turn on the testimony of the dead. Greenbrier County, West Virginia, 1896. Zona Heaster was a young woman of the rich lands, known and liked in a place where everyone was known. That autumn, a stranger came to the valley, Erasmus Stribling Shue, a blacksmith the locals called Trout. He was strong and charming and new, and no one could say much about where he had come from. Zona fell for him quickly. They married within weeks. Her mother, Mary Jane Heaster, did not share her daughter's joy. She distrusted the man from the very start, though she could not yet say why. On the morning of the 23rd of January, 1897, Shue sent a young boy to the house on an errand to ask whether Zona needed anything from the store. The boy found her at the bottom of the stairs, stretched out on the floor, one hand at her side, her eyes open. She was dead, and she was alone. The child ran, and by the time the doctor arrived, Zona's husband had already carried her upstairs and had begun, by himself, to prepare her body for the grave. This was women's work. In that time and place, the washing and dressing of the dead. Shue would not allow it. He had clothed Zona himself, in a high-necked dress with a stiff standing collar, and tied a veil across her face. When the county physician, Dr. George Knapp, came to examine her, Shue cradled his wife's head against his chest, weeping, and would not let go. Knapp's examination was brief. He noted some bruising at the throat, and then he stopped. He recorded the death as natural, a complication, perhaps, of childbirth. The matter seemed closed. Mary Jane Heaster did not believe it. At the wake, she watched her son-in-law guard the coffin, never once leaving the body's side. A sheet had been laid inside the casket, around her daughter, and when Mary Jane tried to return it, she said the water she soaked it in turned red, and that no washing would ever make the cloth clean again. She kept that sheet, and every night, after they buried Zona in the frozen hillside, she knelt and prayed for one thing, that her daughter would come back and tell her the truth. According to Mary Jane, her daughter answered. For 4 nights, she said, Zona came to her bedside, first as a pale light, then as the woman herself, the room turning cold around her. Shue had been a hard and violent man, the spirit said. On the night she died, he had flown into a rage, believing she had cooked no meat for his supper, and had seized her by the throat and broken her neck. And then, the mother said, the spirit slowly turned its head until it faced backward, to show exactly how the bone had given way. We cannot know what Mary Jane Heaster truly saw in that dark room, but we know what she did next. She walked to the office of the local prosecutor, John Alfred Preston, and she would not leave. The body must come up out of the ground, she told him. Her daughter had named her own killer. Preston was not a superstitious man, and a ghost is no warrant. But the doctor's examination had been careless, the widower had behaved strangely, and the mother would not stop. He agreed at last to reopen the case. On a cold day in late February, Zona's body was lifted from the earth and carried to a one-room schoolhouse nearby. 3 doctors, and Shue himself, compelled to attend, stood as the autopsy began. Shue is said to have grumbled that they would find nothing. They found everything. Zona's neck was broken. The windpipe had been crushed. On her throat were the marks of fingers. She had not fainted. She had not died of any natural cause. She had been strangled, and her neck wrung, exactly as her mother swore the spirit had described. Erasmus Shue was arrested for the murder of his wife, and as the law looked harder at the stranger, his past surfaced. Zona had not been his first wife. She had been his third. His first marriage had ended in divorce while he sat in a cell for stealing horses. His second wife had died young, under circumstances no one had thought to question, until now. And neighbors remembered his boast, that he meant to have 7 wives in his lifetime. Zona would have been only the third. The trial opened in the summer of 1897, and the whole county pressed into the courtroom. The prosecution built its case on the autopsy, on Shue's strange conduct, on the history he had buried behind him. But the defense made a fateful choice. They called Mary Jane Heaster to the stand and pressed her again and again about the ghost, certain the jury would take a woman who swore her dead daughter had spoken to her for mad. She never wavered. Calmly, plainly, she told it the same way every time. And the strategy turned in their hands. In the end, the jury did not need the ghost. The broken neck was enough. They found Erasmus Shue guilty of murder in the first degree, and the court sentenced him to life in the state penitentiary. Feeling in the county ran so high that a mob gathered to hang him before he could be moved, and he was carried off in the night to save him for the prison at Moundsville. 3 years later, in 1900, Trout Shue died there in an epidemic and was buried in an unmarked grave. He never once confessed. Today, on a quiet road in Greenbrier County, a state historical marker stands beside the highway. It tells the traveler that Zona Heaster Shue lies in a cemetery nearby, that her death was thought natural until her spirit appeared to her mother to describe how she was killed by her husband, that an autopsy on the exhumed body confirmed the apparition's account. And then it ends, in plain official lettering, with a single extraordinary line, the only known case in which the testimony of a ghost helped convict a murderer. But we promised you evidence and competing explanations. So consider the other reading. No ghost ever testified in that courtroom. Spectral evidence was not admissible and never had been. Shue was convicted by a broken neck, not by an apparition. And the woman who saw the spirit had despised her son-in-law from the first day and may have known or sensed more about her daughter's marriage than she could ever prove. Perhaps the ghost was never a visitation at all. Perhaps it was the only language a powerless woman had, to force the law to act. And yet, something in this story refuses to dissolve. Mary Jane Heaster described a broken neck, strangulation, fingers at the throat, before any autopsy had been done, before anyone had looked beneath the high, stiff collar that Shue had tied so carefully into place. She did not say her daughter had been poisoned, or smothered, or struck down. She named the exact injury that 3 doctors would later find in a schoolhouse, beneath the frozen ground. Intuition, perhaps. Coincidence, perhaps. Or something a grieving mother should not have been able to know, and somehow did. We are not here to tell you that a dead woman walked, only what the record holds. That a careless verdict was overturned, a body was raised, and a murderer was named, because a mother stood in a prosecutor's office and refused to be sent away. Whether her daughter truly returned, or whether love and grief simply saw what the law had missed, the end was the same. The truth came up, out of the ground, and the man who had buried it went to prison for the rest of his life. That is the strange mercy of this case. The dead, it seems, are not always silent. This has been Black Salt Ledger. There is another file already waiting. A ship found far out on open water, sailing herself, her sails set and her table still laid, with every soul aboard vanished into the air. No storm, no struggle, no bodies, only the sea, and what it would not say. Subscribe, so it finds you.